Hi, thank you for joining us. My name is Taliana and I am the Community Events Coordinator here at Hospitable. Thank you for giving us your time to be with us today. I'm excited to welcome you to our third Hospitable Hosts Workshop with Jon, Cristina, Erica, and Andrew, who are going to tell us more about scaling up and how they went from 1 to 20 listings. And before I give the word to Matthew, I would like to share a few housekeeping things. So this workshop is being recorded and will be available after it's over on our YouTube channel, where you can watch it afterwards. We are going to have a Q&A session after the panel, so make sure that you use the Q&A session, the Q&A box, where you can leave us your questions, upvote those that you want answered, and after we're done with the panel, we're going to answer those. And last, we have our social media handles, so make stories, tag us, and share the word about the workshop. And without further ado, I'll hand it over to Matthew to kick off the workshop.
Thank you so very much, Stelly. Well, welcome. As Stelly said, we're super excited to have you with us today. My name is Matthew. I'm VP of Customers here at Hospitable. So today we're hosting 4 experienced Hospitable hosts, Jon, Cristina, Erica, and Andrew. They're going to share with you their experience scaling up and how they went from 1 to many. I know some of you here are really interested in getting to that point. Maybe even some of you are super interested in getting to 1, but we'll have some things to help you out just as well. So we're going to talk about how and when they decided to scale, right? Does scaling make sense for everyone? And what are some of the factors that you really need to consider before scaling? So after we have that panel discussion, we're going to open up for a Q&A. Again, as Stelly mentioned, you'll have that Q&A button at the bottom of the Zoom window. Feel free to open it up, send over your questions. You can also upvote questions that are near and dear to you, and we'll take some of those at the end and ask our panelists to share their thoughts on them. As we've done with these events before, we're going to share a link with you. Now, later on, even later in the email, that we're going to give you $20 off your second bill for anyone who's interested in testing Hospitable to see if we're the right software partner to help you grow your business. So be on the lookout for that, probably during the chat here as we go along. So let's go around the room, introduce our fantastic panel. First of all, thank you so much, panelists, for being here. And we'll get started with you, Erica. Tell us a bit more about yourself. Specifically, where are you in the world? How many units do you manage today? And, how long have you been hosting?
Hi, thank you. So in the world, I'm in Canada. Right now I'm in Muskoka, but I'm basically generally in Niagara. All I do right now is manage properties. So I have done other things, including I was a chiropractor, but now this is all I do. And I have about 16 active properties right now, but I've had up to close to 30. But most of mine, so none of mine are, actually a couple are in my hometown, but I manage them all remotely. So there's some in like a little bit more northern Canada, some along Lake Erie. I have 1 in the US and 2 in Quebec. So I do them all from Niagara essentially. And yeah, I think that's really that.
Amazing. That's awesome.
Sorry. I've been hosting for about since 2015. So that's 7 years.
Oh, wow.
I've been with Hospitable, actually 5 of those. So
yeah, we found Erica was one of the early adopters here. So we're so thrilled to have you and have you share your story. Cristina, we'll pass it along to you. Where are you in the world? How long have you been hosting? How many properties do you manage today?
Hey everyone, I'm Cristina. I belong to the company Capital Jetset, and we are located in Puerto Rico. We have about 30 properties right now. Some of them are ours, some of them are managed, and some of them are under arbitrage. And what was the other question? Forgot.
How long have you been doing this?
Well, my brother actually started this company in 2016, if I'm not, but I've been with the company since 2018. My background is in culinary. I heard that Eric is a chiropractor, so that sounds pretty cool as well. So I used to be a chef. And when I moved to Puerto Rico in 2018, my little brother asked me to join the team as a side help, if you will.
Yeah.
And I've been with him since 2018, and I'm the current general manager of the company. So we have this 30 properties, and we're developing a 12-bedroom guest house, and we're also purchasing a big building near the beach in Condado in San Juan, Puerto Rico, if you know the area, for other 25 apartments. So we're
Amazing.
moving from like single properties and single apartments to just working out whole buildings. So we have a little bit of more control.
Oh,
That's fun. That's fun. Yeah, we see that. We're seeing that a lot more lately. So that's incredible. We look to see some of your insights there. All right. So chiropractor, a cook, Andrew. I think you were an accountant. You said, right?
Yes, yes.
Where
Oh.
are you located? How many properties? How many years have you been doing this?
So I've been hosting since about April 2019 with my own house. I was an accountant for 30 years, and I'm based in Tasmania, which is part of the southernmost island in Australia. We've got a population of 500,000 people, so we're not a big island. I suppose we started with one. We've now got 4 properties, and we've sort of scaled up to get some lifestyle stuff happening, really. So I love being an accountant, but 30 years is long enough, I think. So that's my story.
Lots of number crunching. Awesome.
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 I still love number crunching, but yeah, just
With
my
less
numbers.
pressure.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
right.
Certainly, last but certainly not least, Jon, tell us a bit more about you. How many properties you manage? Where are you in the world? And how long have you been managing?
All right. So right now I have about 60 properties and counting. I started back in 2019. Right now I am in the Maryland area. That's kind of where I live, but I also have a couple of homes elsewhere. So you almost have to ask me by day, where am I now? That's part of the joy of this life, I would say. Before doing this, I was an IT guy, had a full-on, I had my dream job. That's all I could say. I had my dream job, did what I wanted to do. And then, I ended up leaving it. So I can understand exactly how everybody else here kind of started. It's just like, you know what? But it was just time. It was just, time.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So I thank you all so very much for sharing that with us. Yeah, we're gonna have a good chat here. And man, talk about jealousy, right? Oh, ask me where I am that day, and that's where I'll hang my hat. So I think we got an idea of somewhat how we started our business. What I want to know is, how long did it take you to get to 1 to 2? Right? So like, Erica, when you got started with your 1, what was the trigger? Did you plan on growing, or did you plan on just getting this started? Talk about that real quick.
Well, for me, I didn't plan on growing. My husband and I were flipping houses, and we were in a house that wasn't like, we didn't live in it. You know, we didn't have tons of stuff. We lived in it, but we kind of half lived in it. So I was like, oh, let's rent it on the weekends and we'll see what happens. And then I had made a lot of connections with realtors, and a friend of mine, he was kind of a friend, he was a realtor, and he said, I'm going to buy one. Will you manage mine too? So he asked me, and I said, yeah, sure, I can handle 2. So that's how I went from 1 to 2, and that happened pretty quick. So that's how I did that.
And when he asked you, was there a hesitation, or was there like, no, I got this?
There was a little hesitation because, you know, I wasn't a pro. I was like, I just have done mine, but I was part of the service industry in a lot of ways, and I felt like I could offer something good. So I would try for 2 that I could handle that. Going bigger was when it got a little more nerve-wracking.
Okay, what was that point? At what number did you get, okay,
really
did I bite off more than I can chew?
About 3 or 4 to 7, 8. Like that was, I actually said no when people were asking me. I was like, no, I can't do it. But then that's when I found Hospitable. So that changed everything.
Woo, there we go. That's some good product placement. We'll take it. Jon, how about you? Right? What was 1 to 2? What was that story? Oh, you're muted.
You know what? I came in with the mindset that I wanted to start out with at least 4, because I only knew of rental arbitrage when I kind of started. So I did the math, and I was like, you know what? If I had an extra $4,000 a month, I could do wonders with that, right? Like that would just free me up. I can just go travel anywhere. So I did want to start with some scale. But so for me, I'll kind of pivot the question a bit. It was like when I doubled, um, I snowballed things. That was kind of like how I decided to grow. It was like, hey, I got more people asking me for places and I don't have any places. It was time to just go get more. I didn't need the funds because, again, I had my day job. So I just said, well, let me go out and get some more. And I got some more. And then honestly, what really happened when I really exploded, I wanted to stay sharp on my skills. I went to this brand new apartment building and I started talking to them and they said, yeah, we're game. How many do you want? And I was like, well, how many do you have available? They said 23. That was the whole building. I said, well, wait, let me take on 10 and then maybe we can kind of go from there. So it was like I fell into like this big explosion. But I took on those 10 and then it was just like, hey, I'm here now. Like this is a real business. I still kept my daytime job up until I got 28. And then, yeah.
Oh boy, they say, right? I'm a bit of a hippie. You got to open yourself up to the universe, and when you do, then the universe will provide, and it's all going to come right back to you in some way. I feel like the proof's in the pudding on that story. Cristina, how about you? So you already kind of jumped into the business, right? As the company was growing. Where did you start off with? And then, what was the plan to continue that? Was that always the goal that, hey, we're just going to grow this thing? Or were you just coming in to kind of keep managing what was already there?
So this is what happened very quickly. My brother originally owned a water sports school. And he already was renting an apartment back in the day. He was sharing that apartment with a roommate and the roommate left. So he needed to find a way of making that extra income to pay for the apartment. And Airbnb was coming out and he started working out with just that one bedroom and it worked. So he moved into another apartment and started renting that apartment by itself. And he saw the cash flow so quickly that he said, you know what, if I do one, I can do two. But then Hurricane Maria hit a little while after, and he saw the need of rooms available in the area. And his water sports business just was completely shut down. The whole island was destroyed. And he saw the opportunity in short-term rentals. So he began slowly renting out the apartments of the people that had left from his current building on the beach. And he had 7 properties when he came along. And he already started working with Hospitable back then. It was the only way he was going to be able to do it because of the automations. When I came along, we just set up a goal to say, okay, we're going to double down on the property. So we went from 7 to 14 to 20 to 28 to 30. And that's when the pandemic, the COVID hit. So when the COVID hit, we saw that we didn't have much control in these apartments because of the buildings. And we said, you know what, enough. We're going to go for whole buildings from now on. So that's how we actually scaled. It was kind of like something that he ran into. Then a little hurricane, a big hurricane actually, kind of speeded up the process. And then when I came in, we're both like really hard-headed entrepreneurs, and we saw the opportunity and we said that this is what we're gonna stick to. And so far it's been wonderful. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing, right? Taking advantage, even in down times, right? In times where you may not think it's the best time to take an advantage, especially as we're heading into, some economic uncertainty here. There's going to be opportunities there if you have the right resolve, right? And sometimes it just takes that first step. And I hope some of you are getting that, right? If you're sitting on the bench, hey, take an opportunity, take a chance, go ahead and try that one thing out because you never know what's going to happen. And it seems like for a lot of these, like, there's not much risk involved, especially some of you working your full-time job, right? Some of you taking something on for somebody that you already have a connection with and not being so professional from the get-go and then developing that professionalism from there. Andrew, I believe you own a couple of the properties, right? How did you go, how did you start from 1? When did you get to 2?
Well, my story is a little bit like Erica's, really. We had this house that wasn't getting enough use. And my partner said, well, Sharon said, well, why don't we stick it on Airbnb? And I said, okay, well, let's see what happens. And we were kind of hooked from that. And then down in Tassie, you're allowed to put a second property on your block of land. So we built another property for about 100,000, which was nothing really. And that gave us 2. And then we thought, wow, you know, we did some numbers on this and thought, well, we could actually do another one of these. So it all comes down to numbers, of course. The world's full of numbers.
Says the accountant.
So that's right. Showing my colours. But the numbers said if we could buy a third, and then suddenly we are really busy. And the tipping point for us was number 4. So 4 said we can actually give up our day jobs and we will earn money. Now we do our own cleaning. We own our own properties. We do our own cleaning. So we're busy little beavers, but it's partly lifestyle thing too. You know, we sort of gave up a little bit of salary to say let's just have this a better lifestyle. But like everyone else, we could not do it without Hospitable. I can tell you that right now. Without that, this would not happen. I'll tell you now.
We appreciate that. So John, so you own Andrew, you own all your properties. John, when you first got started, did you own any of those properties, or were those properties that you rented for others?
Nope, they were all rental arbitrage. It wasn't until maybe
rental arbitrage. Okay.
Yep. Maybe until my 15th unit or so did people start reaching out about like co-hosting, and then I started co-hosting, but I really didn't know about co-hosting until that point.
Interesting. Okay, so you started managing your own through rental arbitrage, and then you started finding connections, you know, similar to what Erica said there, where you could co-host other properties. And that's something I hear all the time. I remember like hearing that early on, where I told my friends, and then they were like, hey, can you do that with mine? Could you test it out, right? Could you see what happens? So it's kind of like, you know, Field of Dreams a bit. If you build it, they will come in a way. So make sure if you are getting into the space, like promote that with your connections, right? You know, any realtors in the area, have a conversation with them, right? Any realtors that are friends with yours, have a deeper conversation with them, because I've seen so many opportunities that have come along from that specifically. All right. So Erica, I'm going to go back to you here. You got a little nervous when you got to 7. What are some of the mistakes that you made along the way, right? If you could go back to Erica in 2016 and be like, hey, watch out for this. What were some of those things that you would give, you know, some of the advice that you give to people who are looking to grow and scale, you know, that maybe provided some big speed bumps along the way for you?
I mean, I'm not paid to say this, but join Hospitable right away. Like, this is honest, because anyone I even know that has one, I'm like, makes your life a zillion times easier, even with one. So I would have started that right away. I don't know why I hesitated with that at all. And I guess another mistake I could say that comes up is not knowing the area. So you'll have someone saying, can you host this property? But then you don't know if it's a legal place to host, right? And so you need to learn if it's allowed to be hosted and allowed to be rented to short-term rentals. And once you understand that, then you won't end up managing a place that then has to be shut down. I would say that.
That's essential. And, you know, I see there's a question there in the chat as well about registering, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, in this day and age, we know that we're feeling these pressures. We know that the industry is changing. There's going to be more regulation, right? And instead of fighting that and just saying, hey, no, I'm going to go against it, you got to think about, all right, we're creating a business here. We want to have a sound business. We don't want to have the possibility of something coming along the way. So do that research, do the things that you need to, even if it's going to take a lot of extra work. At the end of the day, I think that peace of mind, for me, I don't own properties, but that peace of mind to have everything kind of above, you know, eye level, I think that's speaks volumes to it. So John, same question, man. What were some of the mistakes that you made earlier on? Anything with the way that you manage or co-hosting or arbitrage, anything that you would change, you know, and talk to John back when he was at the IT job and say, hey, man, pay attention.
You know, things get a little tight or stressful once you get to like 5 to 7. 5, I think 0 to 5, you can run them and just be fine in almost in any way you kind of operate them. But once you get to 7, you kind of stretch a little bit further. And that's when you start going like this. You know, I will say I did join, I'm going to say Smart B&B, because that's how old I am, right? So I joined Smart B&B back early, 2019, almost maybe my 3rd month kind of working my units. And it started to lift off a lot of the easy stuff. At that point, it was really just about messaging, but it was like the stupid questions that you would get at 1 a.m. and you're not up. Like, what's the Wi-Fi? Like, oh my gosh, you got the guest book there. It's posted in the wall, but you still want to message me, what's the Wi-Fi? Are you just checking if I'm up? And Smart B&B would just send the message and it's like, hey, thank you. I'm surprised you're up. The place is great. It really started to kind of turn the reviews. It was really great back then. Okay, so once you get to 5 units, it starts to stress everything. You almost have to stay fluid with, hey, this is the process that I did now, but I have to kind of figure out a different way. Like running from a centralized hub once you have a lot of properties is probably the only way you can proceed, because your cleaners can't wash and dry and set stuff back out at 5 different units if they're all turning in the same day and you got to check in. So it's like you got to identify where your stressors are and come up with a solution.
And that's something as well that a lot of people, short-term rentals, right? It's going to be these ideas of somewhat passive income, right? Or that it could be a bit more of a passive income stream. It's not going to be. It's okay though, right? It's still going to be a decent income stream for you. But the idea of like continually reassessing what are some of those things that are working well, that I think is absolutely fundamental in scaling your business, because what worked for 5 isn't going to work for 25. So we can't be using that same playbook, especially as you grow from 1 to many. What is that playbook? What does it look like? So making sure you're documenting, making sure you're taking stock of the things that you're doing. I know it sounds silly, but even the messages that you're sending, if you're sending, messages regularly about ABC, well, ABC needs to be in your listing or your guidebook. How can we put out fires before they even happen? And I'm in Portugal, so speaking of fires, I'll stop right now. It's been a bit of a tough week for us here. But essentially, like, what are the things that we can do that are going to help our business to, it's not going to run itself, but get as close to we can as it running itself, while we're focusing on working on the business, not working in the day-to-day trying to figure those things out. Andrew, so in your experience, right, you own those properties, you do a lot of the work yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, from some of the hosts you've spoken with or some of the other situations, like, do you see that scaling is for everybody? And what are some of the factors that made you want to scale?
Look, we've down here in Tasmania, in Hobart, we've got an Airbnb group that actually physically meet. It's an excuse to have a wine and a coffee. And what I see there is there's a lot of, I'm not trying to be derogatory to anyone, but there's a lot of little old ladies whose husbands have died and they want some company. And they do Airbnb almost for company. Do not scale. Don't do it, because you're actually doing it for a different outcome. You could actually make your life like unbearable by having all these properties, and suddenly what you wanted to do, which was literally just meet and greet and talk to people, you're not going to do. You're going to be too busy. So it's definitely not for everyone. But I've always taken a business approach to what we're trying to do. And scaling is the only way for us to do it from a business point of view. But if you only want to meet people, and my partner and I toured New Zealand for 5 weeks doing nothing but Airbnbs and short stay rentals. Lots of people over there just wanted company, and that's fine. If that's what you're about, stick to that. But don't scale up. If you do want to do it like these panelists here, if you want to scale up and do it seriously, go for it. You mentioned before about mistakes. One of our big things down here, I might have mentioned earlier, is there's a little bit of flack around short-term rental being the cause of some housing crisis. One of the things that I would do differently now, before I put the shingle out that says, hey, we're open for business, I would go and sit down with the neighbours on each side of that property and say, mate, this is what I'm about to do. What do you think? And let them vent. If they want to vent, let them vent. Or they might sort of say, but we're going to have all this traffic. And say, well, no, you actually won't have that much traffic. Have a talk to your neighbours, the people that can destroy a guest experience just by being cold, doing something silly. Talk to your neighbours, get them on side, get them on the journey with you, put all your charm into that.
Absolutely. Especially in some of those areas where there's going to be interactions, there's going to be some challenges or potential challenges. Like, that's an absolutely valid strategy right there. 100%.
Yeah.
And really, what are your goals? What do you want to do, right? You have this one. Does it feel good? Is it something that you want to? I know there's a lot in the space about, hey, people are growing. I mean, proof's in the pudding. We have all these people here who have grown their businesses and really started from almost nothing to where they are today. But
Yeah.
is that for you? Are you chasing, I believe the ladies at TLC said it fantastic. Don't go chasing waterfalls, right? At the end of the day, like, stick to those things that maybe you're a bit more comfortable with, or you want to stay with that. So having those ideas of where you want to go, or at least starting to think about and map out those ideas, can really help guide you along the way. We may not get there. We may take a few different paths and then somewhere else, but at least having that idea, I think can really help you focus, because there's a lot to focus on to get started. So location, and people want to know a bit more about, choosing locations. I'm going to go to you, Cristina. I'm not too familiar with the island down there, but are your properties pretty central? Like, are you spread out all over the place? Are you working with different teams? Can you speak a bit about, how the location worked for you, and any ideas to maybe, head over to the other side?
So sure, our properties are all beachfront properties. Puerto Rico is well known for a couple of things, and one of them it's the beaches. We're 5 minutes from the airport. I think that the farthest property is about 7 to 10 minutes from the airport, but they're mostly all of them are beachfront or oceanfront. So that was really important to us to kind of like fall only into that space. And it has really worked well for us.
Have you rejected any properties, or have you rejected any ideas of properties?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And that's the reason why we chose the beach is because we're beach people. We're surfers and we love the ocean, and we wanted to be able to have properties where people could enjoy the things that we enjoy. Going downstairs for a walk on the beach in the morning, looking at the beautiful sunrise or sunset. And that is something that when you look at tourism, at least in Puerto Rico, that's one of the first things that people look for, to stay in the ocean, near the ocean, or in front of the ocean. So that's why we stayed in that category, if you will, oceanfront. And yes, we've had offers for other properties like around the city, inside of the city, and it's just doesn't fit our niche. Beachfront, oceanfront, ocean life, beach life.
Yeah, do what you know and what you're passionate about, right? That's pretty
Yeah,
amazing.
we're not looking away from other style of properties, but if you know that works. For example, during the pandemic, everything got shut down, and we actually survived because we started promoting our places like, go away from your house, come over and stay with us, and you can work looking at the beach. You were not allowed to go to the beach, but we had like really cool setups for people to come and work and stay with us. And it felt like you were on the beach while you were in lockdown. So that worked really well for us.
Amazing. Okay. Thanks for sharing. Now, Erica, we know you have a bit of a diverse location strategy there. Have you rejected properties, and speak a bit more about how you've set up some of these systems, and like you said, locations where, it may not be so accessible for you, that you're not comfortable or familiar with, let's say.
Yeah, I haven't rejected since I started working with Hospitable. Before, I was nervous, but now I can set up a system. For every new property owner I'm going to work with, I tell them, okay, we're building a team on the ground. I generally like to be there to set it up with them at the beginning of getting it listed. Finding someone that I can call in an emergency, finding the cleaners and then backup cleaners, and knowing who to call for electrical and plumbing and all the different things. So I need a whole system set up. People I've spoken to, people that have approved, that know that I can call them and I can make a call and say, go in and do this. And once that's set, it's generally pretty smooth. I mean, there's always times when it's not, but have backups to your backups and it should be okay.
Because I feel like so many people are afraid of that, right? Like, oh my goodness, what happens if something happens at this hour? But having a good team in place and backups on backups, because that cleaner may not be able to show up and you need to have that resource available. Jon, How about you, right? Where are you located in the world with these properties? Like, did you try to stay, in the Northeast or Mid Atlantic? Like, tell us a bit more about your location strategy and some of the important pieces to make sure that you can move around.
Yeah, it started locally for me. So I wanted to make sure that if I was doing this in the part-time capacity that I was doing it when I started out, that I still had my hands on kind of just the day-to-day. So I started out that way, and then all of a sudden we just started popping up in different cities. I got married, so my wife has a place out in Louisiana, and that was like another place that we kind of rolled out. And then you know what? We took a trip out to Florida. We started building there. So right now we're in really about 8 different cities, kind of across the U.S. We kind of just kind of spanned out west. We're as far now as Arizona, and potentially we'll go further west. You had mentioned something about turning down properties, and I kind of want to put this out there, especially for the audience. When you're doing rental arbitrage, sometimes you're pounding the pavement and you're looking to get the first yes. And when you get the first yes, sometimes you just want to run with it. But you got to keep your guest and your guest experience in mind. You got to make sure that they're going to have a pleasant experience wherever you are. And that could mean, hey, the location, that could mean even the neighbors where you are. That could also mean just what will they do? You have to consider this. It's very important. There's a lot of people, of course, that I know that go out and they're like, hey, I went to 50 properties and I finally got a yes at this property, but you know what? It's not in the best neighborhood. It's not in this, but you know what? They said, yes, I'm just going to do it. I'm pull the trigger and I'm just going to go for it. And, they go for it. And there's some hard lessons. And sometimes when that happens, your guest experience starts to hurt, your reviews start to hurt. It just isn't a good move. So I would add that to that. Hey, this is something you need to consider and turn down. So what I will tell people is to create an avatar for your guests. What will they do? What will they experience? What are they coming for? If they're coming for a beach experience, well, you got to be at the beach. I agree with that, right? You can't be in the 20 miles away and say, hey, this is a beach destination and you're not even close. So keep that in mind. You got to have that avatar. You got to satisfy it. And don't just say yes because you got a yes.
I love that. I love that. Absolutely, right? And having the idea of what that guest is going to do there, right? What's the experience that they're going to have? Is this something that I can sell? We know Christina is going to sell that beach, right? We know she's going to sell that experience. That's a guarantee at that point. Jon, let's talk about your team because I know that's what everybody wants to double check too. Like, so down in Louisiana? What are your who do you have for feet on the ground down there in Louisiana?
You do have to have boots on the ground. You're going to need a strong cleaner. I like to kind of pick those mid-size cleaning crews. Some like a crew that can expand if I decide to expand in the market, like they can add a few more employees. But you're going to need somebody on your staff that kind of protects you as far as inspection goes, as far as doing your running around. You're going to need, paper supplies. Something might be broken and they just need to call a handyman. You need somebody to kind of handle those things. We do try to run efficient teams. So one person for us could really run about 10 to 15 units if they're kind of centrally located. If they're too spread out, we'll just have to have different people kind of do things. But we work with contractors on the cleaning side and then our own staff kind of on the inspection side / runner side.
Okay. So in those locations, you actually have a runner and then you contract more with like cleaning agencies and larger groups that are not just that individual cleaner, but somebody who's going to have a backup in case they're out sick that day and things along those lines.
Correct. Yeah. You don't want to go with the small, you can be mom and popish, but they got to have at least 5 employees, I would say. That way, when one person is sick, you're not dealing with, I don't have a cleaner and I got to check in. I got to run out there and clean it myself. That possibly is the worst thing that can happen. So you want some scale there.
And there's probably a bit more of a cost associated with that than Andrew's facing as him and the missus going clean. But to have that peace of mind trade off seems like the cost may be justified in those. How about you, Cristina? Like, what's your staff look like there? Are you contracting with, cleaners? Do you have some people who are working on your team? Is it just you and your brother? Like, tell us a bit more about the team you have there.
I will show you. Well, I don't know if I can, I don't know if it's blurred, but let me see, that's back there. I would have to take the blurring
Hey, back
out.
there.
Lisbeth is back there. She is our office manager. Let me see if I can do a very quick. Mira, Lisbeth, mira para acá. That's Lisbeth back there, everyone.
Hey, Elizabeth.
Hey, she started with us as a cleaner, actually, with my brother in 2017. And he promised to her, and he said, listen, if you stick with us, or you stick with him back then, you can go, you can do anything. You know, sky's the limit. So she was our cleaner, and then she went to be our housekeeping supervisor, and then she's now our office manager. And like we said, you know, sky's the limit. We're opening 2 guest houses, so she might be the next general manager in one of these properties. So right now we have all of our in-house staff, our cleaning staff. We have housekeeping supervisors, housekeepers, our own handyman. But we do contract with like electrical and plumbing. And at least the trick for us is to build those relationships with these contractors where we, you know, we already know the pricing for repairs and items in the SOSH. And as soon as we call them, they know that as soon as they're done doing their job, they're going to get paid. So we have really good relationship with these outside people. We do have our own team. And then we use a lot of technology to make sure that they are showing up to our storage to pick up the right items. They do their inspections with pictures, and they send them to us through a specific platform that we use, and we keep those in file just in case any guests in the future complain about something not being right. It also keeps our team in check. You know, they have to take those pictures so they know that it has to be right. And so they file reports with the checkout. So yeah, you know, it's our team, and we pay them well and we treat them well. And I think that's the trick, you know, when you can have your own team and just promote from within and keep them happy, man. I think that's, you know, that's the trick. And it's what's working for us at the moment.
Great.
Yeah.
And Andrew, I know you're getting your hands dirty there, but do you have, you know, backups in case, hey, or, you know, I'm sure you go on vacation, right? You said you spent a few weeks in New Zealand there.
That's right.
You know, so for somebody who's a bit more hands-on with his units, like what does your staff look like, or who are those folks that help you out in a pinch?
That's right. Well, basically, my partner and I are doing a lot of that work, but we certainly want to scale up to another couple of properties next year. So that's when, you know, take Jon's point, that's when we start to go, we can't do this now. So next year is probably our tipping point, I think. So that we'll be taking our own staff on board. I don't know that we'll necessarily outsource it to a cleaning organization at this stage. We're probably a bit control freakish. You know, we are so anal about getting this cleaning right, because down here, it is a big thing down here. There is a lot of substandard offers out there at the moment, and I'm seeing that on, you know, various TikTok platforms and things like that about Airbnb being so diverse now that it's just, there's no standard. So we're really keen to keep a standard that we will not get below. Jon mentioned before about the avatar. Our avatar, this mid-40s female that comes to stay in our properties, she is so fussy, mate, you would not believe it. So our standard has got to be through the roof, you know. But it's a very good point Jon makes. You've got to make sure. Yeah, you got to make that avatar. You've got to know them inside out, really. So and you know what turns them off. That's the thing. Knowing what turns them on is easy. What turns them off. So yeah, but we're at the point. That's our next 12-month battle. Is okay. How are we going to do it when there's another 3 or 4 properties? So.
Amazing. Yeah. And you know, selling to that avatar, making sure that you maintain the business to that avatar, and then how you retarget that avatar afterwards, you know, it really helps kind of be a bit of a North Star there for you.
It really is. It guides a lot of what you do. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's going to help you
Mm.
focus and target so you're not shotgun blasting and going all over the place. You have an
Yep.
idea, you can focus, you can double down on some of those things, and it's going to speak volumes when they're looking at the listing, when you're crafting the listing, and even when you're crafting the experience for them.
Yeah.
Um, so we're going to start opening up some of these questions that folks are firing our way. Really interested to ask you a bunch here, but tips for getting a client when you start in a remote destination. So I know, John, you mentioned, all right, Louisiana, you had, your wife's property down there, and that's what got you started. How about Florida? Like, where did you get started in Florida, hosting for others, arbitrage? Let's jump into that. Maybe even talk about Arizona, because that's hot.
Yeah, rental arbitrage pretty much breaks open a new market for us. So we kind of just either we hit the phones or we just fly down to the area and we start busting down some doors. I prefer to kind of just talk to people face to face because you're going to hit some objections immediately, right? I mean, you're coming in, you say, hey, I'm doing short-term rentals or corporate housing, and somebody comes back to you, you mean Airbnb? Like,
Yeah.
And when they hit you with that, it's like, oh, that's
Oh,
already a pain point already. Like, ooh,
Yeah.
they think that I'm bringing the party people. Well, we don't have the party people. You know what? We have noise monitors. We have, just everything that to just make the guest cooperate or just be a great guest, right? Our price point. Sometimes that's even the best way to avoid some riffraff is to try to be at a different price point. So yeah, I mean, we break open new markets with rental arbitrage. We kind of set up our teams that way, and then from that, we then kind of go into, hey, let's find some co-hosted properties around. And even right now, we're at the stage where we're also looking for buildings to buy. As we grow as a company, it's very hard for us to not take on, for us to take on just one or two properties in a new market. We really need them by the tens, and that's getting harder and harder for us because unless it's a new building, we're not getting 10 apartments or more. So yeah, why not solve our own problem? We just go buy the building, we can do what we want.
Would you mind sharing a bit of the secret sauce here? I mean, are you when you say you're knocking on doors, are you going to complexes that you think again have that attraction? All right, maybe it's down by Orlando or down in the Keys, so it's by the beach, and targeting buildings, speaking to the property manager, speaking to that condo association or whatever it may be. Is that what you're getting started with?
Correct. Yeah, we're just going out. We're looking for apartments. Maybe not so much the big brand new apartments, but maybe some of the smaller apartments. You see a tenplex. It's like, hey, this guy might be interested. If there's more of a possibility, I'm going to talk to the owner versus maybe a property manager that has a big company. One of the ones that we have just here across the U.S. is called Greystar. They're everywhere, right? When you see Greystar, it's like, they're not interested. They're too big of a company. For it to get to the person that could really say yes, I got 50 other people that are going to shake their head or say, why? So yeah, you just avoid that. You try to get as close as you can to somebody that can really just say, you know what, I'm interested, I'll give it a try. That's either the owner or close to the owner.
Great. And then like looking for co-hosts, I mean, are you Facebook groups? Are you just kind of searching Airbnb and sending out some messages on the side? Like anything to elaborate on there?
Yeah, it could be Facebook groups. It could just be open rental listings. It could be just networking. Literally, if you just talk to people, people like to connect people. I mean, like if I know, okay, so of course I know probably one of the best tools that I've used. Let me just say, as an IT guy, I am open to anything great, right? I have switched PMSs probably 3 to 4 times. That is painful. If anybody's ever switched to PMS, it is painful. That is your back end system that runs everything. Breaking it up and pivoting to something new is like breaking your business and tearing it down and then building it back. You guys, Hospitable, Smart B&B, I have never even questioned just getting rid of it. So it's like this piece of the puzzle. And of course, by now you guys have added so many other pieces, but just the messaging piece alone is like, yeah.
I hear you. All right. That's awesome. And I mean, I feel like lately I've been on Facebook a bit more, and like I see that. So hey, you know, I'm looking for a co-host in here. I'm looking for a co-host in Vegas. So like going out there again, opening it up and putting out that energy. It seems like, you know, there's a way to fish right there as well. Just kind of reaching out to the people that you know. I mean, have you even just posted in Facebook to your connections that you have? Does anybody have a property? I'm looking to get started in Jacksonville, or you know, down in St. Augustine, Florida. Who's got a property that wants that I can help with? Um, Erica, your strategy, right? You're all over the place over there. We're even in the States. We crossed the border. How did you come across those locations? Was there any that you sought out, or you know, did they pretty much come to you through connections, network, etc.?
Yeah, kind of like John said, networking. I think I've had a conversation once before about this, and if you want to grow, to me, networking is key. Like, go out to the things, meet people, talk to people. That's how I've grown it. I haven't done much for advertising actually at all. I just have an Instagram page. And I'm afraid, sounds silly, but I'm afraid to advertise because I'll get more. I think once you start really putting it out there, you will get more. And I'm not sure how to scale up from where I'm at. So I've just know someone who knows someone, and that's how it's just grown for me.
Right, all right. And how about, you know, some of the other what are some of the systems that you had to put in place? You know, obviously we're talking about using Hospitable, but like, what are some of those others? John, you got excited right there. Like, what are some of those other, you know, maybe not even just software, but other tools that you put around to help your business run?
I want to go with the easiest and probably the second lifesaver is automating entries like smart locks for your guests to check in privately is probably the next best thing. Yeah, I mean, until we removed like having to get keys, things got a lot easier once we implemented smart locks at every location, which meant that at the time I had to get rid of a property that we had 5 units at because we had to hand off physical keys. It was just too much to do, but just smart locks.
All right. Smart locks. I like that one. Anything else? Any, Christina, do you have something, any system that you put in place that really helped the business move forward?
I agree with John, 100%. Smart locks. John, we actually installed smart locks, and we also installed lock boxes next to the main door with the physical key, just in case. And we have the automated message in hospital, previously Smart B&B. Hey, if this happens, emergency code right here. So that helped a lot. You know, since the beginning, pretty early, we created checklists for everything. I think that one of the things that we didn't do early on, and I regret, and we are doing right now, is creating manuals and videos for every single thing that we do. Because if we're scaling, I'm not going to be able to explain things to another person the same way, or to 20 people, a group. You know, it's just when you're scaling, you need to have everything like already written down, and videos and the such. That's one thing that we didn't do at the beginning and we're doing now, like how to onboard a property. You have to not only pull all of the pictures and the description, but if you have certain systems, you need to upload it into Price Labs. You need to work it with your PMS or your property management system, the smart grid system. So yeah, manuals, that's in systems, in checklists, and everything centralized, very easy to get from a phone or from a computer, not something printed. That helps us a lot, you know, to train the new people that are coming in, our front desk agents. We actually have one here and a virtual one, and we also have a calling system overnight. They take our guests' calls when something goes wrong, and they have the information. But of course, if we're uploading properties, that information has to be refreshed to these calling people overnight, so they have the capacity of helping our customers. And having this company overnight taking our phone calls with all of the information that people usually ask about, like the Wi-Fi connection or master codes to go into a property, has helped us a lot. Yeah.
And so thank you all for all that. Andrew, I know you talked about next year we're looking to add a few more. I don't know if you can build any more properties on your land at this point, but funding, maybe you could speak to that. Are you, how are you going to fund this next property? What are some of the things that you're looking for? Considerations, bank loans, private investment. What can you speak to that?
Yeah,
Quickly?
but essentially we'll be going through a mainstream lending institution. We won't be doing equity, private equity, or anything like that. That's simply about understanding how they work and say, okay, do we have what we need to fit their criteria to lend us more money? Because there's an upper limit to all that, of course, and I don't know, over here interest rates are starting to tick up now a little bit, so we've got to be a little bit more careful. But we're getting wage growth down here as well, so that's not a problem. But yeah, mainstream banks basically. And we'll be putting the properties we own as equity to borrow against. So it should build nicely, provided you've got equity in them. So, and that's just the numbers game. I keep saying that, I know, but that's just the numbers game when you're talking to banks. Yeah. So you were talking before about other bits and pieces. Price Lab. Someone mentioned Price Labs. Not a bad piece of software. It certainly made a big impact to us on our bottom line. A good one. You should buy it, Matthew. You should buy it.
That's amazing. We're great. We're great friends with the Price Labs team. They have a great product there. And is there anything? So obviously the dynamic pricing, right? That's something that a lot of people offer. I usually hear folks talk about the additional features for a dynamic pricing tool. Maybe something where they're changing your availability. Making it. Are there any of the other tools that you're using aside from just the smart pricing that's helped your business to maximize revenue?
We're using, I like to squeeze as much money out of my guests as I can in a nice way. So we now do mini bars, we do late checkouts, we do early check-ins, you can hire bathrobes. We're now offering a hire car through a car next door platform. So mate, it's a bit of a spider web when you come to my place, because you open the fridge and it's full of grog. So you want it, you buy it. So yeah. So the add-on sales are not bad. So yeah.
Yeah. And John, I saw you get really excited for Price Labs down there too. If there was any additional features that are helping you drive and maximize that revenue.
Oh yeah. Minimum stay requirements, posted for different ranges, shorter, close in, shorter, longer out, longer days. That has helped a lot, especially when building a calendar. I want to throw this in there somewhere, but this kind of fits is seasonality, right? A pricing tool can help you identify seasonality and then plan for it. So when you add a pricing tool in, you do see that bottom line just kind of go up. And sometimes you might think the pricing tool is crazy. In a place like New Orleans, I don't know if everybody knows, New Orleans has events kind of going on throughout some of the cooler months. Mardi Gras is probably the biggest event, and that same place that you might consistently list for maybe $280 a night is now $1,300 a night. And you might think, oh no, the pricing tool is wrong. Nobody's going to rent it for that. And then guess what?
It's broken.
Somebody books, and it's like, whoa. It just knows, right? It knows the market. It knows other listings. So when you start to add that in and you get that surprise, you'll never turn back. You'll never go back to pricing for yourself. I don't think anybody that has done that. Yeah.
That makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah.
Hey, so really quickly, right? You mentioned that you have some runners in those markets. How did you find those runners? What websites were you using? How did you come across those folks?
Yeah, we actually hire them. So we use sites like Indeed or just other job boards. We look for, of course, somebody that has a vehicle, somebody that has some availability between our checkout times, and is pretty much good with the smartphone. We have another app that actually helps us with our cleaning process and inspections and notifying our cleaners and stuff. This was before Smart B&B added the task piece, so I didn't use that, but there's they can take pictures there. They can inspect, they can send and report issues, but it has to happen in between guest check-ins. So that's why their core hours are between 10 and 3 for us.
Okay. Okay then. And Erica, I know you talked about having, contractors in the area, cleaners, right? I'm sure it's a Google search, take a look at the area, or, are you working with owners? Like, how are you finding those teams in the specific areas that you're targeting or that you're working in?
Well, I do go stay in the area and I'll use, like a Google search. And usually there's Facebook groups for areas. Like I'm on a lake right now called Whitestone Lake. So I have a cottage on Whitestone Lake group. So you join that and see, can anyone help with cleaning? Can anyone help with repairs? That kind of thing. So I was just trying to source. The way that I work is I generally have only a few properties per spot. So I work with an individual quite often. So 1 or 2 cleaning people, not like a whole company generally. So I do have to get to know them. I have to find them, meet them, and then make sure that I can work with them.
Okay. So actually going and having to stay in the place. I like that as well, right? Get a bit of the lay of the land and take a little trip.
Yeah, that's true too.
Yeah. Okay then. So Cristina, I'm going to ask you, they want to know the top 5 tips, right? What are the top 5 tips to scaling? What would you say, Cristina, is one of your top tips? Something that you may have already said or sum up? Like what is that one thing you want to have people understand to take away from here today that they should implement if they're looking to scale?
Automation.
Right?
Get those messages on a platform such as it, like Erica said before, I'm not paid to say this, but get your messages on a platform such as Hospitable and get all those frequently asked questions in there, the messaging correct, just do that, because you can be sleeping and the system is working for you, answering questions that perhaps are kind of like that tipping point for that guest to book. So, they're wondering about something, they're sending you that message, you're sleeping, and then you're losing that guest. While in change, the platform answers for you and they say like, oh, great. And they have 24/7 service and they book. So automation, I would say it's my top tip. Smart locks for sure. Create a trustable team of people to work with you. Get the right properties at the right price if you're working, for example, as arbitrage or managing your properties as well. You don't want to be working for work's sake or just, creating, scaling just to say that you're scaling. You want to be able to make your money, I would say those would be my top tips for sure.
Great. Automation, smart locks, build a good team, build a reliable team. And, this is your team, right? This is your business. This is your baby. So make sure that you're adding those right people and don't be afraid, to move on if we need to find that right fit quickly. Andrew, how about you? Give a couple tips here. Maybe something that we've already said or something that we could add.
That's right. Look, I'm at the smaller scale to my fellow panelists, but even going from 1 to 2 to 3, you need that automation. Cristina is absolutely spot on. You've got to have that automation because it will overrun you just with the second property. And the third, forget about it. You have to have that automation. And the Price Labs pays for itself every month. So don't sort of balk at the cost. Get your automation, get on the Hospital, get onto the Price Labs, and then get that. Think of it like a board of management for a company. So act like a big company, but have a board of these people around you, your contractors and those sort of people, and keep them close. And Cristina nailed it. She said, and you pay them. Pay them well, pay them on time, keep them close. Yep.
You're going to end up with the best results there when you're taking care of those people who are going to be taking care of you in the end. Yep. Jon, you got a couple more for us. What are a couple tips that you can share with the audience?
You know what? I'm going to kind of hit a couple things that were said, just kind of bring some really important light to it. Regulations. You got to know them. You got to remember them. You got to be compliant. Nobody wants to get shut down. Nobody wants to just put all this money into something, sign contracts, and then all of a sudden, what? You get a sign on the door. You can't do it. You definitely want to remit taxes for those properties as well. And then the last big tidbit is know your seasonality. A lot of people just think, hey, I'm in, I got a place. I think I can make, 3,000 a month. And then, you go through your low season and it's like, hey, I'm scraping pennies here. What's going on? And you just didn't know.
Mhm.
Maybe you took it on too soon. But seasonality, every place has a different flow. This is why I'm somewhat in multiple markets. So I'm trying to create, if I can, this nice line across that just says, hey, we make this amount of money every month consistently,
Mhm.
because we've adjusted this seasonality flow to just kind of create this line. So it's very important. I do see that as a killer of a lot of new hosts, is that they jump in the low season and they're not able to withstand.
And then in January they're figuring out. But I mean, everybody goes to Florida year round, right? I'll go to Florida right now. Oh, maybe August in Florida. Ooh,
Yeah.
ooh, boy, I don't miss those days. Erica, last thoughts here. Any other tips that you want to share with them on how to scale, right? What are some of the top things you want to leave them with?
Two tips that I have is have all of your information in one spot. I kind of call it the like, what if I got in a car crash file? And if someone has to take over, because I'm doing it all. So every property, everything you need to know about the host, everything you need to know about the property is in a file that's accessible to a few others that might need it if ever necessary, and to me, because I need to look stuff up all the time. And then the other thing that we haven't, I noticed, talk much about, but I think we all actually think, is to keep your guests priority. Like, the guests are the most important. We want to make sure they have the best stay. And so, yes, we're working to make money and our hosts and all the things, but put yourself as if you're a guest and what you would want to see and what you would want to receive and to know is right and it's clean and all the things, and offer that. Otherwise, you do start to get low ratings and everything flows downhill, basically.
Yeah, we haven't really talked much about the guests in this. We focused on, but the guests are what driving our business at the very end, right? Okay, well, thank you all so very much. It looks like our time today is coming to an end. First and foremost, thank you to our panel. Thanks so much for giving us some of your time, sharing your insights, sharing your stories, helping other hosts there grow their business. Most importantly, though, thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you for being such an active audience, asking all those questions. If you did enjoy tonight's event, the next one we'll have a Hospitable Masterclass with Leo Walton, who's a co-founder, one of the VPs of growth at Superhog. They're going to talk about different types of fraud within the short-term rental section, balance between guest experience, security, of course, insurance, because that's what Superhog specializes in, and much, much more. That's going to be on August 18th. I apologize. August 18th, 2 Eastern, 11 Pacific. Thank you all so very much again. That's all from me. That it's time for me to go put the girls to bed. They're still 3 and 6, so Dad can still tuck them in. Thanks, Jon. Thanks, Cristina. Thank you, Erica and Andrew. Thank you all for joining us. Have a great rest of your day. Have a good evening. Good morning to some of you there. And thank you so very much. Ciao, ciao, all.
All right. See you guys. Thank you.
Take care.
guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah.